It's trying to connect. So we're back. It's 11 o'clock in Greenwich Mean Time. So welcome. And Shirley has kindly agreed to talk to us today all about managing or our superpower and finding your superpower through challenges. So I know we're going to go straight to you, Shirley, but thank you so much. You're from Israel, and you run a bit like Kate, you are a literal translator of science through Hebrew and what's the
we're also working on translating everything to Arabic.
Yeah. I lost the word. There we go. Arabic. And I think of diversity, Shirley. I think of you, and I think of how you are working through diverse communities in Israel, and I think that's something that I think we could all learn from. So over to you, Shirley. I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me. And inviting me to talk today. It's really exciting for me, and I really appreciate it, the opportunity. So I'm gonna take you a little bit through my journey, my story. I'm no superhero, and I have so many things I don't know. And a few years ago, I couldn't even have imagined, honestly, describing myself as either independent, functioning, resilient, or confident. But today, I'm going to share with you my origin story, so to speak. So of how I discovered that vulnerability is actually my superpower. So in 2008, I'm 18, doing my riding instructor's course and planning a very active equestrian future with my horse, Kim. A few months after a brief EBV, Epstein-Barr virus mononucleosis infection, I start having debilitating panic attacks, exhausted and weak. I bravely push through until during a jumping session during the course, I get really dizzy, get off, and pass out. Doctors write down anemia and anxiety. And I'm ashamed and disappointed, and I'm not able to finish the course, but which I did finish later. 5 years later, I did the tests. But at that point, I hope I can prove myself stronger in a couple of months in my impending military service, which is mandatory in Israel. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of weeks of giving all I got in combat training, I pass out in front of my commander. My anxiety takes over and my stomach betrays me with debilitating aches day and night. And I'm judged as crazy, weak, and whiny. And after 4 months of fighting for people to believe me, I end up asking for reassignment, insisting on at least completing the minimal 2-year service instead of 3, instead of being a combat fighter, and get posted in a desk job. During my army service, I continue to fight my anxiety, insomnia, exhaustion, muscle spasms, and basically 24/7 pain, while everyone around me keeps saying, it's all in your head, and push all kinds of pills on me, and though I keep chasing tests and a diagnosis. And finally, doctors write down fibromyalgia and IBS and prescribe deal with it and live on painkillers, basically. It turns out that the Epstein-Barr virus got through the blood-brain barrier into my brain and wreaked havoc on my nervous system. So my disabilities began to define me. Some family and friends even jokingly called me Shirley myalgia. After many turmoils and a fight for sanity, I complete my army service and start thinking of my next step. I was never a really good student with ADHD and a really bad memory, but I always loved biology with a passion for animals and science and books, already reading The Origin of Species when I was 10 in English. So I decide my next step is going to college. If my body wouldn't cooperate, at least I still have my mind and curiosity and can learn something despite being rained with doubt from everyone around me. You can't do it, you can't do it. So studying marine biology away from home, I was barely getting out of bed, struggling, doubting whether I could finish my undergraduate degree. And the only thing that motivated me to do anything was the fact my horses needed me. 2 years of school with endless ups and downs, I felt helpless. Neurological symptoms worsened, and tremors made handwriting agonizing and studying even more difficult. So I want you to hold this image in your head for a minute of a person crumbling under a tower of bricks. These bricks are the challenges and external forces we face through our life. Childhood traumas, growing up, illnesses, economic turmoils, and getting out of bed in the morning. The internal resistance to this pressure is really stressful. So at a point where I felt I lost all control over my body, mind, and life, I realized I needed to ask myself, how can I control either my internal resistance or these external forces and reduce stress in my life to do more than just survive? How can I have a life worth living? So I left the college and continued studying part-time at the Open University, doing everything, including drawing molecules for organic chemistry on a computer. Luckily, technology was very useful. So some saw it as giving up and made me feel ashamed for deciding to change my path. But I know today that changing your path to adjust to what you need gives you some control over your life and builds resilience, rather than just sticking to a path that is not right for you anymore, just to show others you are brave. I think changing is braver. So facing so many challenges throughout my journey sometimes felt like trying to jump huge walls when I can barely go over some, small ground poles. I was flooded at times, lacking security, predictability, and the right tools to cope. So how do we rise from these canyons of doom? Or I think we can use these challenges as building blocks for a nice staircase out of them. It's a slow, tedious process, but it's a way out, up, and on. And I accepted a new path out of helplessness. I found a sense of control in vulnerability and managing my nutrition and routine and building a new path, brick by brick, forwards and upwards. Adaptation is a dynamic process of adjustment to the environment to enhance resilience. So sometimes we change ourselves to adapt using mimicry, change strengths or function. And sometimes we use our adaptations to construct a niche by modifying our surroundings. We know horses adapt in similar ways. However, when stable, they have minimal control of their environment, sort of like what we are having these days with lockdowns and isolations, but daily. So I had the privilege of growing up with horses and a variety of animals, having them as my second family and home. A quirky, curious, sensitive child who preferred the company of animals, which I'm sure some of you can relate. Where vulnerability was accepted and respected, and empathy was an essential communication tool. Unlike the environment, which did not accept me and used shame in bulk, stop crying and being oversensitive. What is oversensitive? Seeing too much, hearing too loud, feeling too much? Do we really want to desensitize ourselves as well as our horses? So at 15, I got my horse, Kim, who is still with me till this day, in sickness, health, better or worse. Later on, she had a daughter who I named Yuki, meaning happiness in Japanese. When Yuki was 2 years old, I was battling with my first year of college. And she got a really bad Streptococcus equi infection, strangles. She could barely swallow anything. When I gave her a carrot, orange pieces came out of her nose. Was really, really a bad case. And after an exhausting week of continuous care and support, she finally started recovering, but was in very poor condition. And shame for that by others who didn't know what she had been through. They looked at her and they only saw skin and bones, and they thought she was neglected and not fed properly, even though I knew differently. And from then on, alongside my own challenges, I kept searching for solutions to manage Yuki's weight and digestion with chronic digestive issues, bloat, hypermotility, diarrhea, and anemia, or what I now know was dysbiosis, and intestinal microbial imbalance. However, learning from my own battles, I decided I'm going to try and control external stressors in her life, and including her training as much as I can. So we took everything really, really slow, but I ended up having the best partner I could imagine. We started bitless and stayed that way. And I enjoyed every moment of comfort, confidence, and clear communication I had with her gentle, sweet spirit. As vets had no more ideas or solutions to help me manage Yuki's condition, I started utilizing my biology knowledge and curiosity to search for more information, trying different nutritional and management approaches, looking for more ways to help her. I realized equine nutritionists around the world do just that, but there were no equine nutritionists in Israel. None. I was astonished when I got the letter of acceptance to the online equine science master's program at the University of Edinburgh. And I honestly didn't think I was good enough or smart enough, but I guess I was curious enough and determined enough. And that really pushed me to do that. And during my first course in equine nutrition and digestion with the amazing Andrea Ellis, who was also my supervisor on my dissertation, I was captivated. I knew that was my mission and purpose, to bring this knowledge to my own country, to my own horses, and to help other horses. Yuki got much better over the years, but unfortunately 2 years ago, when she was 9 years old, I lost her due to a severe colic. I blame myself for missing something, and it took me time to accept that I can't control everything. And she was an extremely tough mare and only showed signs of distress when the situation was dire. She would not show her vulnerability. And so I couldn't know she needed help until it was too late. At the hospital, looking at her labs, the veterinary staff was astonished. She kept standing strong up until she went to surgery. She was a fighter. I dedicated my dissertation in her memory and made it my mission to keep learning and working to improve equine nutrition and welfare in Israel for her and for other horses. My dissertation study aimed to assess the nutritional status and management of horses in Israel by establishing a knowledge base on the horse population where there was none. And I collected data of over 450 horses and identified some key issues to address and research further, which I'm hoping to do with a PhD soon. But I'm not going to talk about my scientific results today. I want to talk about the public reaction. I basically sent out a survey to horse owners and conducted field visits to ask people what, how, where do they feed and manage their horses. And in return, I got so many questions back at me. Some from people who started the visit with talking about their 40 years experience in keeping horses and how they know exactly what they're doing and everything works great. But it seemed that thinking of the answers to my simple questions sparked some curiosity and made them think of a gap between what they know and what they don't know. Now, I want you to imagine another image. A horse under a tower of the same bricks as before, double their size, and put a rider on them, and ask the horse to jump or canter or even a light trot. Horses carry so many challenges on their back and in their gut. Their control of their environment, nutrition, social interaction, and physical stresses is so minimal sometimes, it's a wonder they can carry us on top of that. They become helpless, lost, and broken. So how could they face the physical and mental challenges of training, competing, or schooling with all of that? They are so often, as we all know, anthropomorphized, described as naughty, difficult, or acting out, and then get shut down so we won't hear their cry for help, their helplessness. We need to give them the power of predictability, lead them instead of rule them, and for that, we need to give their owners the power of knowledge and communication. Tools to help them build a new path and use challenges to build a life worth living, and the impulsion to elevate in a perfect pirouette or over any hurdle. I'm really thankful that slowly over the last year, as Lisa said, the local equestrian community built their trust in me. A continuing process by focusing more on asking them questions rather than giving answers to what they didn't even ask. I became the first equine nutritionist in Israel, which is very, very exciting, although very challenging. And in September, I launched Equida, a nonprofit organization making evidence-based knowledge regarding everything equine accessible in Hebrew. And we're also working on translating everything to Arabic with a great team of volunteers and growing community of learners and change leaders. I built a website with engaging articles on topics relevant to the local equestrian community, a podcast, and various webinars and lectures. And also amazing collaborations with international experts, including a wonderful live chat with Lisa, which was really inspirational. And everyone around here in the community keep talking about it. With growing support and collaborations with local organizations, I really hope to keep spreading seeds of change and knowledge and promote local research and academic studies for equine welfare. Finally, I believe that although we are constantly judged, shamed, and stressed, and these are stuff we talked about in the previous sessions here, came up, we can find ways to adapt either our inner resistance or the external pressures. And the key is in embracing our vulnerability and sensitivity as the power to understand better, know better, be better, and show more empathy. This also makes us more resilient. And especially in this fast-changing world where the only certain thing is change, you cannot control it, but you may try to lead it. So by doing and inspiring others to do the same for our horses, and by adapting their environment to be more predictable, create more possibilities for them to control their environment and feel safe, reducing stress and embracing their vulnerability and sensitivity as a tool for communication, for better understanding each other. This will help our horses be more resilient also. And this will make our human-horse bond a true partnership and a legion of superheroes.
Oh, Shirley.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I see you, I hear you, and I value everything you've just shared with us. That was really powerful and so empowering. So I don't think I could ask for more on International Women's Day than to hear your vulnerability and to invite us to join you on being able to identify risk, uncertainty, and emotional exposure. And I think we have lost or maybe never even understood the definition of vulnerability. And you've helped to place it front and center for all of us. And that I thank you. And on behalf of all the delegates, thank you for trusting us with your vulnerability, because I do believe in safe spaces and psychological safety, because that's where we can show up as ourselves. You trusted me and our community here today to be a safe space, and for that I'm really grateful, so thank you. Okay, I've got a few things I've made notes on, because I thought it'd be lovely for like dialogue. Like, the whole point about International Women's Day is to have a conversation. So you've just shared your true inner self, and I always talk about vulnerability as courage. So you've been the most courageous, and courage is all with us. Your self insight is so impressive. So that's really
much.
Okay, I would like to pick up a few things that I think will help everybody. It's very relatable. The first one was, and I'm going to quote you on this, you put here, rather than giving answers to questions they didn't even ask. Oh my God, that was so exquisite. So we talked about this a little bit in another session with Lorna Cameron, and I really wanted to, you circled us back on it, which is educating at others, and it is different. And I think the way you explained, where giving answers to questions that people haven't even asked, I think is a great definition of talking at people or educating at. Tell us a bit more. Maybe you could sort of give us something that you would like to share, or you'd like me to talk about.
I think I realized, first of all, thank you everybody for the comments and all the hearts. It's really heartwarming. So I think one of the things is that I realized that it's a process, and that first I need to ask questions and get people to ask themselves or others questions before they're open to hearing anything and getting any knowledge. They need to make space to be able to absorb anything else. And I saw that through the study, through just sending out a questionnaire and getting back not only answers but questions. I think once you start that, it turns into a dialogue instead of a lecture. Instead of me, pushing information on people, it just builds up a dialogue right from the start.
Should we ask the delegates to comment now? Is, how, one of the things I've recently read about is we all want lectures, like we actually choose lectures, but where the sweet spot is for change is in conversations. And I just think that's so interesting. We've all got this bias to sit in a lecture and to show up on a webinar and to be really passive and to be, that's our comfort. But where we can really make a difference for horses is when we have conversations. And I just think it'd be nice to just see what happens, because one of the things you and I talked about is, would the delegates like to break out into the social lounge, and actually we could have conversations. Now, you could really make me very happy, all of you, if we break into the social lounge and Shirley and I listen to your stories of vulnerability. That would be amazing, wouldn't it, Shirley?
Yeah, I would love that. I'm a very open person, very honest person. It's really in my core, and my way of getting people to open up also is first to be the first one to open up. That's why I really wanted to share with you these points from my journey, and hoping to hear from you. So absolutely.
Yeah, but Gail's put, and this is like the paradigm we're in. We're in this paradigm of being talked at anyway, but we know this shuts us down. And Gail's put here, as an educator and as a student, we have been trained. I think like we're in reinforcement here. We're reinforced to sit and be dumped to act. So you're sitting and listening to the data dump. And like that's so important. And I think if I remember all my teachers in my history who have really hooked me, they got me into discomfort. Very quickly, had a fantastic law lecturer, equine law lecturer at the Royal Agricultural College. And I did my master's, my MBA. And it was he always had the morning slot after the night before. So Wednesday nights was in Cirencester at the Royal Ag. So I was always out on the Wednesday night, and literally, I think it was 9 a.m. sharp, he would be there for the law lecture, equine law. And I was always there. And I'll never forget, he had a question, I can't remember what it was. And he looked at me and he said, Lisa, can you answer this? Or I can't remember. He was a very dynamic lecturer. And he looked at me and I looked at him. I was so hungover. And I just said, Peter, I really don't think I could do the answer any justice at all right now. And he was so able to hold my space of being too hungover. Like I shocked myself. My body was dragged there. Why did I drag my hungover self into his lecture? Because he put us in discomfort. He made me think and interact and engage, and he didn't judge. And when I said to him, I was a mature student, and the other students looked at me quite horrified, and he was like, yeah, cool, no problem. He just moved on. And I was like, yay. Oh dear. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story mainly because being non-judgmental means that we can start to go into discomfort. I think maybe we don't go into discomfort in conversations because we don't want to be judged. Like, who does? Like, honestly, as a parent, it's probably my worst thing. I actually thought equestrians were really judgy until I became a parent. And now it's like, oh my God, everyone has like a judgment of how you parent your children. Okay, let's move on. Shall we? Who's here? Shall I do a quick vote? Let me just see if we want to move into the lounge, or if not, we can have chats here. Let's do it. So,
I think I what you said about looking for that discomfort, but being afraid of being judged. I think it's sort of like we need pressure in our life. To this discomfort is a sort of pressure, and we need it in order to evolve and to learn, and without it we're just standing in place. But we're afraid that it's gonna become stress, that it's gonna be an overload. Without being able to control how much pressure we are exposed to. So I think it's also something that horses sometimes get in a similar way. If they're used to being over pressured and stressed, they will not react as well to that pressure.
I've talked about resiliency training, and we talk about actually good stress, eustress, and then distress, and how the whole point of resiliency training is to not to remove the discomfort for horses, but it's actually to build layer on layer of resiliency. So this is what your whole talk has been about. The adversity is the way. It's the obstacle is the way. We wouldn't see Shirley today on the International Women's Day stage without your adversity and how you've overcome it. So, all the challenges, your physical health, your mental health, I'm passionate about how we can be more supportive to each other as equestrians and beyond equestrianism, in terms of our mental health. Now, many people have challenges that nobody can see. And I think we don't necessarily think about that, and that's something that I would love to see more of. Okay, listen, it's 50-50 heading into the social lounge, so I'm gonna keep it. Oh, it just changed. It went from 50-50 to 60-40 to go into the social lounge. I think because it's quite a it would make me it's gone a bit higher again. So it's 67% are saying yes, let's break out. Let's just break out. If it's really uncomfortable. yeah, if it's really uncomfortable, we can just have just a quick chat. We've got, I'm going to take 10 minutes in the social lounge. So I'm going to make this a break, and I'll see you all back here at 22, so 11:40. And I'll see you on the tables. You and I will split up, Shirley, all right?
Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good.
So we're back. Okay, last 5 about community and how perhaps we're not always able to reach out for community, and maybe we choose as women, as equestrians, to be more alone. So that was the first thing. We then went on to collaboration and different types of collaborations that perhaps are new to us as equestrians, but there are some of us are more open to collaboration, even though it's new, whilst others are shutting it down. And then lastly, Jackie talked about how when we taught the talk of interested in different and diverse, and so we're talking about different disciplines, we're interested in learning about reining, but when we actually go out in practice and we actually go on the barns and on the yards, we become very tribal and very cliquey. And so we really sit in tighter. So I think that's a really interesting gap between what we say we're doing, which is listening and collaborating, and then how we then our actions and our behavior drill into the tribalism of being around more people like us. Shirley, what did your table talk about?
Oh, I would really love to address quickly what you just mentioned, just before I go to that, just because it, first of all, about community, I was always not involved in equestrian communities, trying really not to just stay away from it, and a really a loner. And I think one of the things is also that I never felt that I belonged. So that connects to the other point that you mentioned, because I always feel like I competed a bit in dressage. I did some jumping and competed in jumping when I was a kid. I also learned some Western riding. So I tasted a bit from a lot of things. So I don't feel like I belong anywhere. So I don't have that click, but I feel like I can relate to enough of each click. So I can try and relate to them, to different people. I think a key thing is to try different things, even if you have one direction which is works for you. For me, it's dressage and just trail riding. Trying different things helps us have more empathy and seeing different from a different angle. So I think that's a really key issue for me on that. On our table, we talked about the balancing between pressure and not over pressure, and not escalate to stress, and how about good stress, or I differentiated to pressure instead of stress. Like stress for me is more negative thing, but if it's still in pressure, then it could be good, as long as it's not an overload. And we talked about being independent versus working at a company or a firm or something, and having less security, but more control on your environment, and more control on the challenges you face and the stress levels. That was really interesting.
Nice. I love the way your table talked about agency, and how actually, as long as we get that choice to respond, so that's that space between stimulus and response, we can actually manage distress. Like we can actually navigate it. And I thought it was interesting your comment about language, and how for you, the word stress itself is just negative, whereas what the science is really digging into is finding raising arousal. Like today, Shirley is aroused. Like you're up on stage, you're out of comfort. We don't do this every day. And so that's good stress. And you're in your sweet spot, actually, which is lovely for me to see. And then obviously we've got that threshold of going into distress, which I wouldn't want to see. And I would hate to, have this as a source of distress. So I thought your whole talk has been so educational, really inspirational. And I think if you are listening and you're feeling inspired by Shirley and you want to support forwards, can you remind me of the charity? Did you see me the charity's name that you recommended with Sharon?
Oh yeah, with Sharon. Yeah, starting over. So starting over. Yeah.
And do you have close connections there?
Yeah, I help them sometimes and with consultations, and I've been there a few times. They're doing amazing work with all kinds of animals, including and mostly horses and donkeys. And they're in rehabilitation and rescue operations and everything, and also education. So they're doing an amazing job. Absolutely.
So if you're feeling inspired by Shirley's story, which I'll come on to, Susan's just sent us a lovely message. Please, please, please pay it forward and show your support to, what's it called again?
Starting over.
Starting over. Right,
yeah.
I gave the Instagram link, actually, starting over. So that's brilliant. Okay, this is from Susan. Shirley, you belong to you. You are a great inspiration. I think that's a beautiful end to what a fantastic 45 minutes. So thank you, Shirley.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Yeah, it's an amazing day and amazing to talk about these issues together. And absolutely, I feel these days, I do feel like I'm part of a community. I'm part of a global community with inspirational women and people who push themselves and challenge themselves in order to promote change. So that's amazing. Thank you all for that.
Thank you. Choosing to challenge is gorgeous theme. Right, I'm going to take a quick break. By all means, navigate the arena. Don't go anywhere, because our next speaker is Menka, and she is another inspirational woman that you just won't want to miss. So I'll see you all back into the actual session, which we go live at 12 o'clock. Speak to you soon. Bye.